Okay, here we go. Thanks for doing this, Max.
Of course. Man.
Coming down to 3, 2, and 1. First of all, Max, thanks for doing this on an off day. So from this little perch, it's much appreciated. The floor is yours. Your thoughts on Dallas. What's it like being here, playing here?
It's awesome. I mean, I haven't been here for that long, to be honest. Played 2 games and then went on the road for whatever it was, 12 days. So a great way to get to know the guys, not necessarily a great way to get to know the city and everything that goes with it. But so far, so good, honestly. Like, great restaurants, great people, organization's awesome, the staff's great, and ultimately the teammates. When your teammates are awesome, which they always are, it just makes everything else much easier.
See, that's interesting because you're a player. Like, I look at, when I hear the name Max Domi, I think he's involved. Like, you're involved in plays, physically, emotionally, like all of it. Like, you're a very engaged hockey player. And when you're like that, you make enemies on the ice pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What's it like going? Like, what was it like going to Dallas? You've played hard against the Dallas Stars previous. Yeah. Is there much mending of fences when you join a new team?
It's hilarious because no one ever really holds that against you, but I think deep down they're like, oh, I hated that guy. And guys have told me, they're like, dude, I hated you playing against you. You're so annoying. But then you become really, really good buddies really quick too. So that's usually how it works. Everyone I've ever hated on the ice. It's a strong word, but that's what we use around here. And you always end up loving the guy when you meet him in person. So that's just how it goes.
Was there someone on Dallas you're like, oh, this guy, and then he turns into, this guy's awesome. You go on a 12-day road trip, like, this guy's awesome.
Obviously Jamie Benn's a guy that no one likes to play against. Yep. He's such a good player, one. But two, he's just a monster and he's tough as nails. As far as I'm concerned, he's one of the toughest guys, if not the toughest in the league. And listen, he'll do whatever he has to do to kind of get in your kitchen, but he's a guy that has a lot of respect around the league. So certainly had our battles over the years, but a guy that I've always respected and just really happy to be on his side of things, now. And it's funny too, because I played with his brother back when I was in Montreal.
Yeah, Jordy.
And Jordy's great. He's one of the biggest beauties I think I've ever played with. And he always would talk about his bro. I'm like, man, your brother's a nightmare to play against, but we always have a good chuckle about that. They're both great guys and super pumped I've gotten a chance to play with both of them now. You mentioned it's only been a short time since you've been here in Dallas, but was there or are there a couple of guys, one guy that you look at and you say, I knew he was good, but I didn't know he was that good? There's a lot of them. First, I'll go with the offensive side of things. I guess there's probably 6 or 7 guys that I can say that for, but that top line with Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski, all 3 of them, I knew they were unbelievable players, but the plays these guys make, they just see everything out there. It's like there's 3 Sundins on the ice. It's unbelievable. And you see them in practice, off the rush. They just make these little 2 to 3, sometimes 5-foot plays, and they're always putting it in areas and they're skating into it. And that comes with a lot of time and chemistry, I think. So it's one of the best lines in hockey. You could make an argument. Oh, yeah. It's right there with the best of them, and I don't think they get nearly enough credit. Hintz with his speed and his skill set is incredible. Robo's ability to score, one, everyone knows that, but just how smart he is. He's a big kid too. I didn't realize how big he was. Then I was walking behind him. I'm not that big, obviously. I'm pretty small, but I was walking into one of the first games that I played here. I was like, who is this guy in front of me? He's massive. And sure enough, it was a Robo. But and then obviously Joey's, he's up there. I've heard obviously a lot of great raving reviews about him as one of the best teammates there is. And he's exceeded my expectations, which is tough to do because I've heard amazing things, and he's first class all the way. Let me ask you about Pavelski. Pavelski to me is fascinating. Personally, I think he's got a Hall of Fame career and he's going in. No doubt. I look at Pavelski and I say, not the fastest skater, not the hardest shot. You take all the individual, maybe the best tipper. I'll give him that. No one tips pucks like Pavelski. But I look at everything that goes into making a hockey player, and I say, there's not one skill that really stands out other than he competes so hard every shift, every puck, and is so smart. Yeah, you nailed it. I think everyone sees the tips and stuff that obviously he works on every day. I've seen that firsthand. It's pretty cool to watch. I watched it yesterday. It's a lot of reps. People think when you practice and it's 5 minutes. He's out there for 15, 20 minutes a day. And whether it's early or after practice, he's always locked in. And I think that stemmed. I've always asked him a lot of questions about that, and him and Burnsy back in the day in San Jose and Jumbo, they had a pretty good thing going there. And he's like, man, Burnsy is a machine. He just sit there and shoot like 300 pucks, and I just sit there and tip them all. So I mean, it's pretty fascinating what he's done with his career. I mean, he's a guy that around the league is respected by everyone, and everyone knows how good he is. And I think everyone's kind of cheering for him to get the ultimate prize and win a Stanley Cup, because that would just be a cherry on top of a heck of a career for him. He'll go down as one of the best American players for sure of all time. And the other guy that I didn't get to talk to on that last question you asked was Miro Heiskanen. I honestly, like, I knew how good this guy was, just especially from playing against him a little bit. Sure. When I was in Columbus, we had the same division with the shortened season and the bubble and all that stuff. So I played against him quite a bit, and I was like, man, this guy is so smooth. He's unbelievable. But now playing with him, like, you see him plays 30 minutes a night. He's the best player on the ice every single game. Like, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, you see McDavid get the puck and take off through the neutral zone. There's really no one that can keep up with Connor. Everyone knows that. Yeah. And there was a play where I just saw Miro take 2 strides, and he just kind of kept his stick right there, and I was like, wow, that is absurd. And honestly, everything he does, he makes so many incredible plays, and he makes everyone around him better. And we're very lucky to have him here. I think he's one of my favorite players to watch and definitely to play with. So he's unbelievable.
All right, Max, I want to ask about teeth. First of all, let's see the smile. Okay.
What do we think?
How did that happen?
So funny. It was like literally 4 days before I got traded. So these guys in Dallas only know me as the guy with no teeth. But literally right before that, I had pretty nice teeth, to be honest with you. But one of my good buddies, Scott Harrington from, way back in London. Yeah, you know, he was my captain. He was my ride to the rink every day when I was 16 and 17 years old. We were very, very close. He was like a brother to me, honestly, back then. Anyways, I was kind of with Andreas Athanasiou going to the neutral zone, and Double A kind of threw a puck this way, so I kind of tried to go around him, and Harry just decided to swing his stick a little bit higher and like square in the face, and I just like went down. I'm like, whoa! Like, not only was it these 2 teeth here, it was like the top 4 and then the bottom 4. Like, it was just a big hole. And again, we talked about officials, but I went back to the bench and there was no penalty. I'm like, what? Guys, I have no teeth. What do you think? I just did this myself? So, I mean, honestly, man, like, it's a new look for sure.
Yep.
My girlfriend and mom aren't huge fans of it, but I mean, hey, I don't mind it. The lisp is a little bit annoying sometimes when you're trying to articulate some words, but it's also kind of funny. You look at yourself in the mirror, it makes you laugh.
Listen, Bobby Clark special in your life. And now you got the Bobby Clark look, right?
Very true.
Relationship with your team's dentist is what now?
Good, I think. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it had to be good because it was like my second day here that I met with the dentist. He was like the first guy I met. So, no, pretty good in Dallas. The Anaheim one took care of me originally. San Jose, I just didn't have time because we were flying out right away to back-to-back. So I was just kind of like, all right, thanks. See ya. Like, he's like, yeah, that's not very good, but you'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm like, okay. And then Chicago, obviously, was like, all right, we're going to book you in for an appointment tomorrow. And tomorrow was the day I got traded. So,
you know, I want to ask you about Pete DeBoer.
Yeah.
And managing the bench. I talked to Pete yesterday, and one of the things that I was talking about is like, there are 2 teams that I look at who manage their bench better than other teams. One is Boston, the other is Dallas. Like, you look at the forwards. I mean, everyone's under 20 minutes. All 4 lines go. All 4 lines play. Yep. Jamie Benn's having a great season. He's under 16 minutes a game. Yeah. Like, he really, like, the minutes are really even. That's a Pete DeBoer thing. This goes back to Florida Panthers. What's he like to play for?
He's unbelievable. I mean, Pete's great. I think everyone in that room loves him. And I think when you have that, I know it's his first year in Dallas, but everyone's kind of bought into his systems, and they have a certain way of playing here. And the reason why everyone's playing under 20 minutes and sometimes under 15, 16 is because you really can't play that much, because the way you play is very high pace, very high energy. We're going north a lot, and we're competing. I mean, if that puck gets turned over, you got 3 guys, I mean, on their horse trying to race to get back to D zone and put pressure on the puck. So there's a lot of intangibles that go with that in terms of the ice time and being able to manage that. But he's great. He's very, very positive. Very enthusiastic on the bench, and kind of just injects energy into our lineup. And I've certainly enjoyed my short little tenure here so far with him, and not just him too. I mean, Naz is great on the back end. He's a super positive, funny guy, and Spotter's awesome too. And both those guys are Kitchener legends. So
you're not allowed to talk about Kitchener Rangers as a London night. You're not allowed.
Guy, it's tough pill to swallow, but no, they're awesome. I really enjoyed my time with them so far, and I'm learning a lot.
Let me ask you about you. I mean, you're a veteran in this league,
which is crazy. Yeah,
does it feel like? Because I still like. I'll be honest with you, Max. Like, I remember watching you with Don Mills. Like, it was like, this is crazy, bizarre. Man. Now he's like going to be 30 in a couple of years, and he's a veteran in the league. Like, I'm curious. Like, at what point did the league get comfortable for you? Like, there's an awkward transition phase. Like, at what point were you like, yeah, man, I got this league?
I think when I was early on in Arizona, obviously I had some success and loved playing there, loved my teammates and whatever. But after like a couple years in the league, you start to get the hang of things and you realize, okay, like I can do this, you know what I mean? And I can be a player in this league and I can help these teams win. And then once you start getting bounced around a little bit here and there, then it gets a little tricky because you're always having to adjust on the fly. Yeah. And that's just me being honest with you. It's not easy. Obviously, no one wants to get traded a lot, but when you're in the situations that I've been in with shorter term contracts and just trying to find that right fit, but then ultimately also getting a chance to play for some two great teams, whether it was in Carolina at the deadline and now another chance with Dallas to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, those are opportunities you can't pass up, right? And you just got to make the most of it. But like you said, time does fly. Like it's absurd to think that I was 20 years old. I mean, 8 years ago now. I mean, like I'm getting old. It goes fast, and I think you realize how fast, like how fast it goes, and how much you really have to enjoy every day because it is a privilege to play in the best league in the world, and it goes quick. So you got to enjoy every second of it.
What's your relationship now with officials? Like this is, we're doing this interview the night after the Seattle game, and there were a couple things. There's a goal called back. Yeah. There was an incident with your stick that got slashed out of your hands, and the official tried to give it back to you, and you'd already gone to the bench to get a stick. And I'll be honest with you, I thought he was going to throw a penalty at you. Yeah. Like I thought, and I'm just curious, like, because you're a robust player, right? Like like I mentioned, you're an engaged guy. Yeah. What's your relationship like with the officials?
It's a great question. And like you said, obviously a pretty emotional guy. And that being said, I am being kind of hard on myself when I say that, but because I do have a big heart and I do care about everyone. Yeah. So I'm not a guy that wants to scream and yell at any official, you know what I mean? But they're also your best buddy, and when the time you need them to, and they are great guys. They have a tough job. They have a really tough job. Yeah. They're trying to ref a game that's, moving at a really high pace, and there's a lot of emotions in it. Obviously, the fan bases are pretty crazy, so you do got to give them the benefit of the doubt for sure. But there are some times where tempers do flare a little bit, and I think when I was younger, I had a harder time controlling that and honing that in a little bit. So might have started off on the wrong foot with some guys, but I think as you get older, you learn to be quick to apologize and be real quick to assure them that, hey, I'm sorry, my emotions got the best of me, which is the truth. You know, like you're not trying to, snap at anyone like that, and you're not trying to disrespect anyone ever. But that's just how the game is, and it works for them too. They're like, hey, man, sorry, my temper's flared up there too, and it's kind of works both ways. And just that kind of mutual respect for one another, I think, is how you have to handle it. And like I said, I have gotten a lot better, but last night, for instance, prime example. Hey, it's going to go your way sometimes, and it's not going to go your way other times. So it's a matter of just kind of riding that fine line, you know?
That's so funny because you know who told us the exact same thing 2 years ago at the Players Tour in Chicago? Sidney Crosby. Yep. I asked Crosby, I said, you've had this spectacular career, like a Mount Rushmore career, right, of hockey. Anything you regret? And he said, if I could do it all again, I wouldn't have gone at the officials as hard as I did when I started in the NHL. He's like, yeah, I've done a lot of apologizing.
That's the GOAT telling you that too. So, it happens to the best of us. There you go. Prime example.
I look at you, Max, and I say this game in a lot of ways is evolving towards your style of play. There are some players that I look at around the league and I say, the way he plays fits every single team. You're one of those guys. You're a skill player, you can skate, and you're awful to play against. Like you're just terrible to play against, miserable to play against. And it's interesting because you look at this year's trade deadline, and those were the most valuable players. Like everybody wanted, I'll just be blunt, everybody wanted to get a prick. Yeah. And some teams wanted to get 2 or 3 of them. Yep. And, when you can play the way you can, skate the way you can, and you have that other side, that edge to you, that's really valuable. Like, do you find that the league is trending more towards that direction? Because this year's trade deadline was fascinating. Everybody wanted those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything you said is accurate, 100%. The game is so fast now, and there's a lot of more like puck possession type stuff, and you need to have guys that can escape, but also guys that can think the game and make skilled plays. But that being said, once playoff time comes around, you need some hard-nosed dudes that can do all that stuff, but also mix it up in terms of play hard, get in corners, and be hard to play against, because it's all about winning, right? And if you're one of those guys, obviously this year seemed to be a year that was in favor to those kind of players, and I just got to be one of the beneficiaries of that, because obviously a chance to play in Dallas, and that's all I'm really focused on is and I'm here, I'm a Dallas Star, and I'm just trying to help this team win a Stanley Cup, So it is a huge honor and a huge privilege to get picked up by one of the best teams, and it's a great opportunity, right? You got to make the most of it. So I mean, like you said, if that's why they brought you in, you better do your best job to showcase all of that and do whatever it takes. And sometimes teams just think they have a little missing piece here and there, and if you're what they think they need, then go out there and get it.
There's one thing that you do that I've always marveled at, and we saw it in the Memorial Cup against Portland. Your between the legs sauce pass to Bo Horvat, which is still legendary, one of the greatest passes I've ever seen.
A little lucky, but
and I thought, like, wow, you know what? That's the best pass I've ever seen Domi make. And then in the game against Seattle, not last night, but the previous game, overtime, Tamira Heiskanen, long bomb, beautiful sauce pass, lay it perfectly on the blade.
Yep.
We talked about Pavelski and working on tips. Is that something that you work on, or that's just something you've always had?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of coaches have been all over me about that, because I've always been a pass-first guy, and I think that probably stems from my mom, if I'm being honest with you.
Really?
She's just a very giving person, and I mean, she's more happy when she sees someone else doing well than herself. Yeah. And it's not to say that I'm the exact same as her, but for whatever reason, since I've been a young kid, I've always got a real good feeling when I see someone else score. And you're the reason why you're helping them. You're helping them do that. Versus scoring, I was always like, not insecure, but it sounds weird to say, but you're just like, oh, like you don't want that attention kind of thing.
Seriously?
It was weird, man. As a kid, that's just how I felt. Like, just I love setting up the boys. Like on 2-on-1s, I would never pass, or I would never shoot. I'd always pass. Yeah. And my dad would absolutely lose his mind. Like at one point, and this is a true story, he'd actually he had two people text or call me. I don't remember which one it was, but Matt Sundin told me he would just be like, but enough with the passing, like shoot. Like, if you're going to make the NHL, you got to learn how to shoot. So that was one guy. And then the second guy, who's one of the best, if not the best all-time hockey player, is Mario Lemieux. And he said, but they don't pay you for assists. They pay you for scoring goals. And that was when I was like 7, 8 years old. So like obviously, like, I mean, his mind was a little further down the road, but two obvious legends that have been all over me about shooting the puck since I was a real young kid. But again, like I said, I love passing. I love thinking the game that way. But at this level, it is a fine line, because sometimes you can overpass, and that's something that I've definitely struggled with. And there's a time to shoot. And you do have to be selfish at some point. So it's something I've been working on for sure. But of course, passing has just always come natural and something I've enjoyed doing. So working on sauce passes, forehand, backhand, just making little plays here and there is something I've always worked on in practice and back on the backyard rinks and in pond hockey for sure.
It's awesome. It's so much fun to watch. Tell us about your relationship with Matt Sundin. This stretches back a long time when your dad played with him.
Yeah, Matt is essentially a godfather to me. This guy is someone that, after my dad, he's one of the first people that I would call in terms of getting advice for hockey or anything. Whether it's off the ice or on the ice, he's my first call. He's helped me a lot with my off-season training program. We keep in contact. He watches most of my games for sure. Obviously, I'm always trying to keep in touch with him and his family and checking on the kids who are growing very fast, but it's insane. It's something that I look back on and you don't realize how special something is until you step out of the little bubble for a second. Sure. Like when Matt Sundin's the guy that you're calling all the time, that's not necessarily normal. You know what I mean?
You realize all your teammates were like...
Yeah, not everyone has access to that.
He gets to call Matt Sundin.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something that I don't take for granted, and I'm very grateful for and thankful for, because he's not only a Hall of Fame hockey player, but a Hall of Fame human being too, and he's someone that I lean on a lot.
This is gonna sound like a dumb question, but I think I think you understand what I'm getting at here. How much has your dad helped you? Like not, and I'm not saying like not just because your nameplate says Domi and second generation players, but I've always felt that your father never got enough respect for being a good player.
Yep.
That guy could skate, man.
I say this to everyone, and first of all, the most important thing that I can take away from all that, and nowadays is the people that he's surrounded me with, and the situations he surrounded me with growing up. I mean, you can't teach that, and you can't write that in a book. That's something
that's parenting, right? Like,
correct.
I'm a parent. I got 3 kids, and like, my wife and I are always talking about like, what can we give the kids? Experiences as much as you can.
And that's all he did. He just literally just kept throwing me in these situations to try and teach me. And again, he played a different role than obviously I do on a hockey team for sure, all the way up. And he did whatever it took to get there. And I respect him more than anyone on the planet because he did the hardest job in all of sports, realistically, and the most selfless thing you can think of to really step up to these absolute mammoth human beings just to protect his teammates when he was just this little guy. And I mean, he's an absolute warrior, unbelievable teammate, and a guy that worked for everything and earned everything that he got. It kills me that he never got a chance to win, and that's probably the biggest thing that drives me every single day is to try and do something that he wasn't able to do, not just for myself, but for him as well. That'd be something pretty special. So I owe a lot to him. I mean, I owe almost everything to my parents, for sure, just as I'm sure your kids would say the same thing. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today without the sacrifices.
Some days better, some days worse.
Of course. But you know what? I mean, I think just that and surrounding me with the proper people and different experiences and situations that teach you how to be a pro at a very young age. I think that was something that, I mean, you can't script, and I'm very appreciative of my dad for sure.
Let me ask you about equipment.
Yeah.
Because I can recall, and I'm going to take this back to your dad. I can recall when everybody all of a sudden, the TPS XN10s sticks, like everybody had to have them. And everyone was still sort of at that time in the NHL, it seemed, fighting with this new technology, like backing up a pass with your skate and, oh man, it's going off the heel, it's going off the toe. Growing up, were you always a guy that had, either from your dad or from the Maple Leafs room, like the hottest, latest gear? Like, how did Max Domi get an XN10?
You know what? It's funny. I always was a TPS guy because my dad was a TPS guy.
That's right, yeah.
And going back to Brad Jansen, I don't know if you know that name, but
I know Brad, yeah.
Janny was a legend.
Hockey, yeah, I know Brad, yeah.
The TPS legend for sure. Great guy. Was with Easton for a while, but he would always, and my dad was a righty, right? So I couldn't just take my dad's sticks. So I actually had, I think part of the way they paid him was through like credit within the company. And we just used most of that credit for my custom stick. So you'd see like Domi 13, like an intermediate tiny little stick with a Zetterberg curve. It was pretty straight back in the day. But no, I mean, I love TPS, but I love changing stuff up and always trying new things. But it was kind of whatever my dad had access to. I wasn't really able to just, oh, Dad, I want a Bauer, Like he was against that because he's like, why would I ever I got a free stick here for you. Why'd I go buy a Bauer? So I was always kind of in the TPS lane, but I did have a pair of gloves when I was with the Toronto Marlies that literally lasted me like 5 years. And at that time, like, it's gross. You know what I mean? Like, it's so gross how long.
Those are the worst.
Like, they smell so bad.
It's the
worst. And they're, like, peeling. And at one
no.
point, like, I think I just came home and my dad just, like, threw them away. And it was, like, the worst day ever. Because I'm like, dude, you can't do that. But, no, I mean, I was a TPS guy through and through. But I certainly did have access to a lot of equipment that, I mean, most people might not have. But love hockey stuff for sure. Big hockey gear geek for sure.
You are, right?
Yeah.
What's the one piece of equipment you're fanatical about?
My stick for sure. Stick, and then probably skates and gloves are right there as well.
What do you like in a stick?
I mean, again, like going back to my comment about not really being a shooter, more of a passer. I like to feel the puck a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'm not really all into the whole like kick point release thing of all these really light sticks. They're almost too light. I mean, some of the younger guys love them, and then they're plenty skilled. So it has nothing to do with that. Like you can use either stick, but me personally, I like a little bit of a heavier blade, like kind of the more old school build of a shaft and blade combo. So I've had the same Bauer stick for a while, just a couple different paint jobs over top. But yeah, no, I've had the same curve for a few years now. Yeah, it's pretty locked in as of right now.
Are you one of those players that has, as the season goes on, the flex changes?
No.
You're not that guy?
No. When I was younger, though, like, which is hilarious. I mean, Stan Wilson, one of the best, if not the best equipment guy on the planet. And not just equipment guy, but human being. Him and Tony Silva, Jason Rudy, the whole staff in Arizona was incredible. But Stan would be like, dude, just find something and stick with it. And Stan was also the equipment guy when my dad played in Winnipeg. So he had known me since I was an infant, which was awesome. But he would be all over me. He said, just find something that stays, that works, and just stick with it. So the first few years, I was all of a sudden, I wanted to try everything. You know what I mean? Like, you have access to all this stuff in the NHL. You're like, I want to try this curve, or whatever. Yeah. And you just drive yourself insane. So finally grew up a little bit. And again, when I went to Montreal, I just found a curve, stuck with that, and I've been with that one ever since. But the staffs that I've had the privilege of being with, I mean, from Arizona, Montreal, Columbus, then Carolina and Chicago, and now Dallas. Like, it's almost like I've had the 6th best staffs, it seemed like. But it's like, it's incredible how awesome these guys are, and also how in tune they are with all the stuff coming out. Because I feel like nowadays, I mean, back in the day, like, they wouldn't change that much in a stick. You know what I mean? Now it's like all of a sudden there's holes in sticks and stuff. Like, it's bananas. What some of these kids are trying.
Did you try those?
I did, but like
the slings, right?
I couldn't do it. So like, these guys have their hands full, but they've been great with all that.
That's awesome. You mentioned your dad. I want to ask you about your mom. You're a very fashion forward guy. I don't know how many pairs of shoes you own.
Too many.
But that all comes from mom, who used to work in the fashion industry.
Yep. She wouldn't be very happy if I blamed her for that, but because she's against my addiction for shoes.
Shoe addiction? Yeah. Does it come from her, or is that's just always been you?
I think it's just me. But pretty addictive personality overall. But honestly, I've actually, again, grown up a little bit, so I don't just waste money on a pair of shoes for the sake of doing it anymore. But I was with Nike for a few years, so that saved me quite a bit of time and money. It's huge. Handy. Yeah. But no, again, like, I mean, at some point, I mean, you have 2 feet, right? So 2 feet, and I mean, not that many days in a year, so there's no point in having too many pairs of shoes, I guess. And I learned that one pretty quick.
Two more. Yeah. A lot of talk at the general managers meetings last week about the automatic fight after a big hit. Take us into a player's point of view. A lot of players will say, like, listen, a big collision happens. We don't know. We don't see it. We just assume it's a bad hit, so we're going for it. Yep. Like, take us in a player's mind after one of your guys gets hit. Like, what happens in your mind? You're on the ice. Maybe you don't see it. What's your initial instinct?
It's really just a reaction, to be honest. I mean, I have 2 instigator penalties this year, and both were hits on Patrick Kane that when you go back and watch the hit, you're like, oh, like, he didn't get hit that hard. And like, you probably shouldn't have reacted that way. But when you're just in the culture of, I mean, the family culture of being like, every time I walk into that locker room, I would do anything for those guys that I see. And we're trying to win every single game. So when someone gets hit or someone looks like they're in an uncomfortable position, it's your job to step up for them. That's just kind of how I was raised. That's how our game is. As much as they try to get rid of that stuff, it's always going to be like the case in our game. And quite frankly, both times you see red and you just go to your teammate's defense. You know what I mean? And then after, like, if you have the time to think about it, of course you're going to be able to make a better decision. You know what I mean? But the reality of our game is it's so fast. Things happen so quickly. It's an emotional game. A lot of things happen like that. So, I mean, listen, I think it's great. I think it's awesome to see when guys step up for their teammates, because I think that creates the culture that so many people before us and so many generations before us have built. Which makes our game so special that you'd give anything for the guy to the right and the guy to the left. And it's about the team, not the individual. And that's a selfless play as far as I'm concerned. And again, that's just kind of in my blood for what my dad did. That was his job. So I think it's got a place in hockey. I'm not sure where their mindset's at, the GMs and stuff like that, because I mean, of course, if there's going to be a clean hit, you can't have a fight every single time. Yeah. And I think nowadays too is the game has gotten away from these massive hits in terms of like the consistency of the massive hits. Yep. Like, you'd see like a huge hit that Jacob Trouba throws once every few games. You'd see that like every period. You know what I mean? So I think the game's evolved in a way that makes it just like put a spotlight on each individual hit.
That is so true.
Because there's just not as many.
It's completely
true.
So
it's tough to really blame the players on that. It's just that's where the game is, and I don't think it's actually changed as much as people think it has.
It's interesting hearing you talk about that, because I've always been of the belief that sports kind of exists in this weird place between what your head knows, like you talk about, like you go back, like, maybe overreacted. There's what your head knows and what your heart feels. And like sports is right in between there, man.
100%.
Like that's where it lives. Last question for you. Mm-hmm. What do you want people to know about you? Floor is yours. This is the billboard for Max Domi. What do you want people to know about you?
Oh man, I've kind of given up on really caring about what people know about me, to be honest, because a lot of people will paint a picture, and I think that's the number one thing and takeaway from me is that nowadays with social media and all this stuff and misunderstandings here, misunderstandings there, and they interpret something this way or interpret something that way, is people are always going to have views on you, and whatever that might be, good or bad. I mean, it's what it is, right? And I keep my circle real tight, whether it's guys in hockey with my teammates and my real tight-knit circle of friends back home. My family is number one. So those are the people that I care about in terms of what they think of me. You know what I mean? And if they're proud of me and they're happy with who I am as a human being, that's all I care about. And really that's how I live my life, is someone that I try and enjoy every single day. I try and leave a positive mark on everyone I meet and make their day a little bit better. I think the world is drifting too far away from that these days. People get a little bit too self-obsessed and what others think of them and what they're doing. And it's just, I think the world's a better place when you're worried about taking care of others around you. So that's how I just operate. That's how I was raised. And I care about one thing and one thing only, and that's my family. And those close people around me and what they think. And other than that, I mean, hey, if you got an opinion on me, that's great. You can have an opinion. I really don't care, you know. But and the other thing is after family is trying to win a Stanley Cup. So I'm in Dallas right now. Couldn't be more proud to be a star and represent this city and this fan base with this amazing team. And we have one goal, and that's to win. So just trying to be real present where my 2 feet are and help this team out in any way I can.
It's awesome. Well, you made this podcast better. Thanks so much,
buddy.
Max.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Great seeing you.